Captain Minho Park stood at the window of his small spacecraft, watching the massive space station grow larger ahead of them. The Galactic Council's central hub was bigger than any city on Earth. Thousands of different alien ships moved around it like tiny insects around a glowing light. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Dr. Sujin Lee from the seat behind him. She was Earth's best scientist when it came to studying alien life. Her voice was calm, but Minho could hear the excitement underneath. "Yeah," Minho replied. "Makes you feel pretty small, doesn't it?" Commander Ji-won Kim looked up from her data pad. She was in charge of Earth's military for this trip. "The station has been here for over 3,000 years. Some of the alien races built it together when humans were still learning to make fire." Minho nodded. Earth had only learned about other life in space 50 years ago. The aliens had known about humans much longer, but they never bothered to contact them. To the great civilizations of the galaxy, Earth was just another rock floating in space with some animals on it. Their ship moved closer to the docking bay. Through the clear walls, they could see other aliens walking around. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled in the light. Others moved like flowing water, but kept the shape of people. There were creatures made of pure light that floated instead of walking. "Remember," Ji-won said, "we're only here to watch. They didn't invite us to join their meetings. They just want to look at us like we're some kind of interesting pets." The invitation had come as a surprise. For the first time ever, the Galactic Council wanted humans to visit their station. But the message made it clear that Earth was not being invited to join. The Council just wanted to study these young mammals who had somehow learned to travel between stars despite being so primitive. When their ship docked, 3 aliens were waiting for them. The first looked like a person made of blue crystal. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. "Welcome, humans. I am Veltar of the Veltharian Republic. We will be your guides." The second alien was Stranger. It looked like a group of small creatures that moved together as one person. When it spoke, all the small parts spoke at the same time. "We are Nexara of the Nexari Collective. We think as one mind with many bodies." The third alien was the strangest of all. It was made of golden light that held a human-like shape. Its voice sounded like music. "I am Lumseth of the Luminant Empire. We are energy beings who learn to think." The 3 humans followed their alien guides through the station. The hallways were huge and filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some had many arms, others had no arms at all. Some walked, some flew, and some seemed to move in ways that made no sense. "Your species is very young," Veltar explained as they walked. "Most races here have existed for tens of thousands of years. The Veltharians have perfect logic. We never make mistakes in our thinking." "We Nexari share all thoughts," added Nexara. "We have no war, no crime, no disagreement. All minds work together for the good of all." Lumseth's golden form sparkled. "We luminants are pure energy. We do not age or die as you do. We have studied the secrets of the universe for 5,000 years. Minho felt very small listening to them. Earth had barely figured out how to stop fighting wars with itself. These aliens had solved every problem humans could imagine, and many they couldn't. They entered a massive round room where the Galactic Council met. Hundreds of different alien species sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. At the center was a speaking area where the most important aliens stood. "You may sit in the observation area," Veltar said, pointing to a small section marked for visitors. "You cannot speak during the meetings. You are here only to learn." The 3 humans sat down and watched as the council discussed important matters. They talked about trade routes between star systems, peace treaties between different alien nations, and scientific discoveries that could help all species. What struck Minho most was how smoothly everything worked. No one argued. No one raised their voice. When the crystal aliens spoke, their logic was perfect. When the collective aliens gave opinions, every part of their group agreed. When the energy aliens shared knowledge, it was always correct. They make it look so easy, Sujin whispered to her companions. No fighting, no mistakes, no problems. During a break in the meetings, some aliens came to look at the humans. They studied them like scientists studying new animals at a zoo. Such short lives, one alien said to another. They only live about 100 years. And look how they're built, said another. So weak and soft. No natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. I heard they still fight wars with each other, added a third alien. How primitive. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms approached. Them. Are you really from Earth? It asked. The planet where the inhabitants kill each other for resources? We're working on that problem, Jiwon replied politely. The alien made a sound that might have been laughing. Working on it for how long? Your whole species' history is nothing but violence and chaos. Other aliens gathered around to hear the conversation. I studied their culture, said a floating alien made of metal. They can't even agree on how to run their own planet. They have hundreds of different governments. And religions, added another. They believe in so many different things that they fight about it. They're emotional creatures, said a wise-looking alien with many eyes. They make decisions based on feelings instead of logic. How did they ever learn to build spaceships? Tami. Humans sat quietly and listened to all the comments. None of the aliens were trying to be mean. They were just honestly confused about how such a mixed-up species could develop space travel. When the day ended, the 3 humans were given small rooms to sleep in. As they prepared for bed, they talked about what they had experienced. They're right about us, you know, Minho said. We are violent. We do fight too much. We make mistakes all the time. But we're here, Sujin pointed out. Somehow, despite all our problems, we made it to the stars just like they did. Maybe, said Jiwon. But it's clear they don't think we belong here. To them, we're just interesting animals who got lucky. As Minho lay in his bed that night, he could hear the sounds of the great station around him. Thousands of advanced aliens from across the galaxy, all working together in perfect harmony. All of them sure that humans were just a curious footnote. In the story of galactic civilization, he wondered if they were right. 3 months had passed since the humans arrived at the Galactic Council station. They had watched dozens of meetings and learned about civilizations that spanned entire star systems. Everything seemed peaceful and well-organized until the emergency. Alarms sounded. Captain Minho Park was in the observation deck when red lights started flashing throughout the station. The calm voices of aliens suddenly became urgent and worried. He found Dr. Sujin Lee and Commander Jiwon Kim in the research section, where they had been studying alien technology. What's happening? Minho asked. Veltar, their crystal guide, appeared next to them. For the first time since they had met, the aliens seemed afraid. The Devourers have awakened, it said, its crystal body flickering with nervous light. What are Devourers? Sujin asked. Ancient machines from the edge of the galaxy, Veltar explained quickly. They were built by a race that died out millions of years ago. The machines were made to clean up space junk and old planets. But something went wrong. Now they eat everything they touch and make more of themselves. The humans followed Veltar to the main council chamber. The room that had always been calm and orderly was now full of panic. Aliens were talking rapidly in dozens of different languages. The big screens around the room showed images that made everyone's hearts sink. Entire star systems were gone. Where planets and suns used to be, there was nothing but empty space and huge swarms of metal machines. The machines moved like a disease, spreading from system to system, eating everything in their path. They consumed the outer rim colonies in just 2 weeks, announced a luminant energy being. 3 star systems completely devoured, 17 billion lives lost. The greatest minds in the galaxy were called together. Veltharian supercomputers that could think 1,000,000 times faster than any human brain. Nexari collective intelligences that combined the thoughts of entire planets. Luminant masters who understood the deepest secrets of energy and matter. For days, the aliens worked on the problem. The humans were not invited to help. They were given a corner where they could watch, but no one asked for their opinions. After all, what could primitive humans offer that the greatest civilizations in the galaxy couldn't think of? The solutions the aliens came up with were impressive but terrible. The Veltharians calculated that they could stop the Devourers by building a wall of exploding stars. It would work, but it would destroy half the galaxy. The Nexari suggested using their combined mental power to control the machines, but it would take 500 years to build the needed technology. The Luminants proposed turning themselves into a weapon of pure energy, but it would mean the end of their entire race. Every solution required huge sacrifices or impossibly long amounts of time. The Devourers were spreading faster than anyone could stop them. While the great minds worked on impossible solutions, 3 humans were assigned to clean and maintain the station's lower levels. Engineer Hyok Nam was good at fixing things. Pilot Sunmyo could fly any kind of ship. Researcher Donghyun Choi loved solving puzzles. They were just doing basic work while the important aliens saved the galaxy. During their lunch breaks, the 3 humans would sit together and talk about the Devourer problem. They had access to all the same information as the aliens, since no one thought humans could cause any trouble with it. "Look at this," Dong-Yun said one day, showing them data on his tablet. "The Devourers follow the same pattern every time. They land on a planet, eat everything they can find, then build more machines and move to the next planet. They're very efficient," Hyok noted. "No wasted motion, no unnecessary actions. Everything they do serves the purpose of making more machines." Sunmi looked at the battle reports. "And every time our ships fight them, we try to match their strength. Big weapons against big weapons, strong shields against strong attacks. That's how you're supposed to fight," Dong-Yun said. "Meet force with force." "Is it, though?" Hyok asked. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. What if being efficient is actually their weakness? The other 2 looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Well," Hyok said slowly, "they only do what they're programmed to do, right? They eat matter, make more machines, move on. They don't waste time or energy on anything else. So what if we gave them something that looked like good food but was actually poison?" Sunmi's eyes lit up. "Like a computer virus hidden inside. Fake materials." "Exactly," Hyok said, getting excited. "They're so focused on eating and growing that they might not check if the food is safe. They just grab it and use it to build more machines." Dong-Yun was already running calculations on his tablet. "If we could get the virus into their system, it could spread to every machine they build. Instead of making them stronger, it would make them eat themselves," Sunmi finished. The 3 humans looked at each other. It was such a simple idea. Maybe too simple. But what if it worked? They spent the next week working on the plan in secret. They used human computers, which were much simpler than alien technology, but also much easier to modify. They wrote a program that looked like useful building instructions, but actually told machines to take apart other machines and use the parts incorrectly. The hard part was getting the alien leaders to listen to them. When Hyok finally got the courage to approach Veltar, the crystal alien was polite but dismissive. "That is an interesting thought, human," Veltar said. "But our greatest minds have already considered all possible approaches. Your idea would not work against such advanced machines." "But have you tested it?" Hyok asked. "There is no need. Logic tells us it will fail." Hyok went to the Nexari collective next. They listened to his explanation with all their many parts paying attention. "We have considered this approach," they said in unison. "Our combined intelligence shows a 0.3% chance of success. It is not worth the risk." The Luminants were even less interested. "Young human," they said in their musical voice, "we have studied warfare for thousands of years. Simple tricks do not work against enemies of this level. Frustrated, the three humans decided to try their plan anyway. They couldn't test it on real devourers, but they could test it on captured devourer pieces that the aliens had brought back for study. In a small lab that no one paid attention to, they introduced their virus to a piece of devourer technology. For hours, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the machine began to behave strangely. Instead of trying to build more of itself, it started taking itself apart. The pieces it made were wrong, weak, and couldn't function properly. The virus worked. When they showed their results to Veltar, the crystal alien was silent for a long time. Then it called the other council leaders. Within hours, the three humans found themselves in the main chamber, explaining their simple plan to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "This is impossible," said a Veltharian leader. "Our computers show this cannot work." "Our collective mind sees no path to success," added a Nexari representative. But the test results were right there for everyone to see. A piece of devourer technology, destroyed by a simple human computer virus. Commander Jiwon Kim stood up in the observation area. "Permission to speak?" The council leader looked surprised, but nodded. "Maybe," Jiwon said. "The problem isn't that the plan won't work. Maybe the problem is that you're all too advanced to think of it." The chamber fell silent. No one had ever suggested that being advanced could be a disadvantage. A week later, human-designed virus packages were loaded onto fast ships and sent toward the devourer swarms. The aliens watched nervously as the small ships delivered their payload and quickly escaped. At first, nothing seemed to change. The devourers continued eating planets and building more machines. But then, slowly, the reports started coming in. Devourer machines were malfunctioning. Instead of growing stronger, the swarms were getting confused and turning on themselves. Within a month, the unstoppable devourer advance had ground to a halt. The machines that had consumed 3-star systems were now consuming each other, leaving nothing but floating scrap metal. The galaxy was saved by a simple idea from 3 humans who were supposed to be cleaning floors. In the council chamber, the greatest minds in the galaxy sat in stunned silence, trying to understand how they had missed something so obvious. And for the first time, they began to wonder what else they might be missing about these strange, primitive humans from Earth. The success against the Devourers changed everything. The Galactic Council chamber that had once buzzed with confident discussions now felt tense and uncertain. The greatest minds in the galaxy were facing an uncomfortable truth. They had been outsmarted by the species they considered most primitive. Dr. Yunho Jang had arrived from Earth a week after the Devourer crisis ended. He was a specialist in how brains work and how people think. The Council had requested him specifically, desperate to understand how humans had seen a solution that escaped their advanced minds. "The question you're all asking," Yunho said to the assembled alien leaders, "is how we thought of something. You didn't. But that's the wrong question." Veltar, the crystal Veltharian, flickered with confused light. "What is the correct question?" "The right question is, why couldn't you think of it?" The chamber fell silent. No one liked the implication. In those words, Yunho activated a holographic display that showed brain scans and thinking patterns. "Let me explain how human minds work and why they work differently from yours." He pointed to the Veltharians first. "You have perfect logic. Every decision you make follows clear rules. You never make mistakes in reasoning. But that means you can only think of solutions that follow logical paths." The crystal aliens glowed dimly. They were proud of their logical perfection. "The Devourer virus worked because it was illogical," Yunho continued. "It tricked the machines by giving them something that looked right, but was actually wrong. A perfectly logical mind would never think to use deception and trickery as weapons." He turned to the Nexari collective. You share all thoughts among your people. When one of you thinks something, all of you know it instantly. You have perfect cooperation and no conflicts. The many parts of the Nexari representative nodded together. But that means you can only think thoughts that the group agrees on. Individual crazy ideas get filtered out before they can grow. The virus idea came from just 3 humans working alone. If they had to convince millions of other humans first, it might never have happened. Finally, he faced the luminance. You are pure energy beings who understand the deepest laws of the universe. You know exactly how much energy every action requires and never waste any. The golden luminance sparkled acknowledgement. But the virus solution was incredibly wasteful, Yunho explained. We built thousands of virus packages knowing most would be destroyed before they reached their targets. We used simple, inefficient technology because it was fast to make. You would never choose such a wasteful approach. The alien leaders listened in uncomfortable silence as Yunho continued his explanation. Humans evolved differently than all of you. We're not the best at anything. We don't have perfect logic, shared minds, or energy mastery. But we have something else. We're generalists. He showed images of human history on Earth. For millions of years, humans had to survive in a world that kept changing. Ice ages, floods, droughts, predators, diseases. We couldn't evolve to be perfect at handling any one challenge because the challenges kept changing. Instead, we evolved to be adaptable. We can think logically when logic works, but we can also think illogically when logic fails. We can work together as a group, but we can also act as individuals when the group is wrong. We can be efficient when efficiency matters, but we can also waste resources when the situation calls for it. Commander Taewon Shin, who had arrived with the New Earth delegation, stood up. Dr. Jang is right. In human military training, we learned that the best battle plan never survives contact with the enemy. So we train our soldiers to adapt and improvise. Your species would find this terrifying, Taewon continued, addressing the aliens. You plan everything perfectly, but humans expect plans to fail, so we're ready when they do. Veltar's crystal form flickered with what might have been confusion. But surely planning and preparation are better than chaos and improvisation? Usually, yes, replied Dr. Soo-Jin Lee, who had been studying alien psychology for months. But not always. When we face something completely new, like the Devourers, our chaotic thinking becomes an advantage. She pulled up data from the Devourer crisis. Look at the timeline. Your perfect planners spent weeks creating detailed solutions that required years or decades to implement. The humans spent a few days creating a messy solution that worked immediately. This is disturbing, said a Nexari spokesperson. Are you suggesting that imperfection is superior to perfection? Not superior, Yunho answered, just different. And sometimes, different is exactly what you need. Engineer Hyok Nam, one of the 3 humans who had created the virus, was invited to speak. When we were working on the problem, we didn't try to think like you do. We thought like humans. What does that mean? Asked a luminant leader. Well, Hyok said, we started with a crazy idea. What if we could trick the machines? Any logical species would immediately ask, how is it possible to trick such advanced technology? But we didn't ask if it was possible. We just started figuring out how to do it. Pilot Sunmi-Oh nodded agreement. Human thinking often works backwards. Instead of asking, will this work? We ask, how can we make this work? It's not always smarter, but it leads to different solutions. Researcher Donghyun Choi added, we also fail a lot. Most of our ideas don't work, but we're used to failure, so we keep trying new things until something does work. The implications of these revelations spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Species that had spent thousands of years perfecting their abilities began to question whether perfection was actually limiting them. Some Veltharians started experimenting with illogical art, crystal sculptures that served no practical purpose but were beautiful to look at. A few Nexari began practicing individual thought, trying to think ideas that they didn't immediately share with the collective. Some Luminants started wasteful activities, using energy for fun instead of just for necessary tasks. Not all. Aliens embraced these changes. Many were horrified by the idea of being imperfect on purpose, but others found it exciting to explore new ways of thinking. Meanwhile, the humans were careful not to let the attention go to their heads. Ambassador Jaehyun Yoon worked to establish good relationships with alien species while making sure humanity didn't become arrogant about their success. "We got lucky with the Devourers," he told Captain Minho Park one evening. "Our way of thinking happened to be exactly what was needed, but that doesn't make us better than anyone else." "Just different," Minho agreed. "The real test," Jaehyun continued, "will be whether we can work together with the other species. Our adaptability won't mean much if we can't cooperate with beings who think completely differently than we do." As if to prove his point, a new crisis alert sounded through the station. Long-range sensors had detected another threat approaching from deep space. This time, it wasn't machines. It was a massive fleet of organic ships from an unknown species. The aliens immediately began their careful planning processes. The humans began preparing for chaos and improvisation. And for the first time in galactic history, the two approaches would work together from the beginning. The galaxy was learning that having different kinds of minds working on the same problem wasn't a weakness. It was the strongest advantage of all. The unknown fleet approached the galaxy like a storm cloud made of living ships. Each vessel was the size of a small moon and appeared to be grown rather than built. They moved in patterns that made no sense to military experts, seeming to change direction randomly while somehow staying perfectly coordinated as a group. Captain June Park stood on the bridge of the first joint human-alien warship, the Unity. She was young for a captain, but her ability to make quick decisions in impossible situations had earned her the respect of both humans and aliens. Beside her, Veltar provided tactical analysis, while a Nexari collective avatar coordinated communications. "Their behavior makes no logical sense," Veltar reported, its crystal form flickering with frustration. "They approach our defenses, then retreat. They scan our ships, then ignore them. They probe our communications, then go silent." The Nexari avatar, speaking with the voice of millions, added, "Our collective intelligence cannot predict their next actions. Their pattern appears to be random chaos." "Maybe that's exactly what it is," June said. She turned to her human communications officer. "Try sending them music instead of standard diplomatic messages." "Music?" Veltar asked, confused. "If they're not logical like you or collective like the Nexari, maybe they think more like humans do. Emotional, creative, random." Within an hour, the alien fleet's behavior changed completely. Instead of random movements, they began forming beautiful patterns in space. Their ships danced around each other like leaves in the wind. Then they responded to the music with sounds of their own. Not words, but something like singing. First contact established through artistic expression, the Nexari collective reported with something that might have been wonder. This approach was not in any of our diplomatic protocols. Back on the council station, scientist Kyung-Soo Moon was working on a problem that had puzzled alien researchers for centuries. The energy crystals that powered most galactic technology were running low, and no one could figure out how to make new ones. The crystals formed naturally in certain stars, but only under conditions that occurred maybe once in 1,000 years. Kyung-Soo's approach was typically human. Instead of trying to understand how the crystals formed naturally, he started experimenting with ways to make them artificially. He combined Veltharian precision technology with Nexari coordination systems and luminant energy manipulation. but he used them in ways that no alien would consider proper. "You're wasting enormous amounts of energy," a luminant advisor warned him. "The efficiency of your process is terrible." "You're using our technology incorrectly," complained a Veltharian engineer. "Those components weren't designed to work together that way." "Your approach lacks coordination," the Nexari Collective noted. "You should plan each step in advance instead of adjusting as you go." But Kyung-soo kept experimenting, failing most of the time, but learning something new from each failure. After 3 months of work that produced mostly expensive mistakes, he finally created a small energy crystal in his lab. It wasn't as perfect as the natural ones, but it worked. "How did you do it?" asked the amazed alien scientists. "I didn't try to copy nature," Kyung-soo explained. "I tried to understand what the crystals do, then found a completely different way to make them do it. Sometimes the best solution isn't the elegant one, it's the one that actually works." Meanwhile, diplomat Min Jung-han was facing what everyone thought was an impossible task. The Crystalline Alliance and the Void Swimmers had been enemies for over 2,000 years. Their species were so different that they couldn't even exist in the same type of environment. The crystalline beings needed solid surfaces and bright light, while the Void Swimmers lived in the dark, empty spaces between stars. Every attempt at peace talks had failed, because neither species could understand how the other thought. Logical negotiation didn't work because their logic was based on completely different assumptions about reality. Minjung tried a different approach. Instead of bringing the leaders together, she created a virtual meeting space that was half Crystal Palace and half Dark Void. Instead of formal negotiations, she organized cultural exchanges where each species showed the other their art, their music, and their stories. "This is highly irregular," protested a crystalline ambassador. "Diplomacy should be based on facts and agreements, not emotions and entertainment." "We do not understand the purpose of these activities," added a Void Swimmer delegate. "How does sharing songs help us resolve territorial disputes?" But something unexpected happened. As the two species learned about each other's cultures, they began to see that their long war was based on misunderstandings. The crystalline beings had always thought the Void Swimmers were trying to destroy their worlds, when actually they were just trying to clean up space debris that interfered with their travel routes. The Void Swimmers had thought the crystalline cities were aggressive expansions when they were actually artistic expressions. Within 6 months, Min Jung had helped negotiate the first peace treaty between the two species in 2 millennia. The key wasn't logical argument. It was emotional understanding. Agent Sungwon Park was given a mission that would have been impossible for any logical or collective species: infiltrate a criminal organization that had been stealing technology from across the galaxy. The criminals were smart, paranoid, and had defenses against every known method of investigation. Sungwon's plan was pure human chaos. Instead of trying to sneak in secretly or gather evidence systematically, he pretended to be a corrupt human official who wanted to join their organization. He acted greedy, unreliable, and slightly stupid, exactly the kind of person the criminals thought all humans were. "This plan has a 73% chance of failure," calculated a Veltharian security advisor. "Agent Park should use proven infiltration methods." "Our collective analysis shows 17 better approaches," added the Nexari intelligence network. But Seung-hwan went ahead with his chaotic plan anyway. He got himself arrested for minor crimes, started fights in spaceport bars, and generally behaved like the worst kind of human troublemaker. The criminals noticed him, decided he was too stupid to be a spy, and recruited him. Within weeks, he had gathered enough evidence to shut down the entire operation. The criminals never suspected him because no logical species would choose such a risky, unreliable method. Only humans were crazy enough to succeed by pretending to fail. The pattern was becoming clear across the galaxy. Humans excelled at tasks that required thinking outside normal rules. They could function effectively in chaos, make decisions with incomplete information, and find solutions that nobody else would consider. Most importantly, they were willing to take enormous risks for uncertain rewards. While other species calculated acceptable losses and safe approaches, humans often chose dangerous paths simply because they offered hope. Captain Wanho Lee demonstrated this during the Battle of the Broken Stars. His small human fleet was surrounded by enemy ships with superior firepower. Any logical commander would have surrendered or retreated. The Nexari Collective recommended negotiating for the best possible terms of surrender. Instead, Wanho ordered his ships to fly directly into the enemy formation at maximum speed. It looked like suicide, but he had noticed something others missed. The enemy ships were too close together to use their biggest weapons without hitting each other. The crazy charge worked. Confused by the illogical attack, the enemy fleet accidentally damaged itself trying to target the human ships. Wanho's forces escaped with minimal losses while the enemy retreated in confusion. "How did you know that would work?" asked his Veltharian, tactical advisor. "I didn't know," Wanho admitted. "But I knew that doing what they expected would definitely fail, so I tried doing something they wouldn't expect." "That's not strategy," protested the advisor. "That's gambling." "Sometimes," Wanho replied, "gambling is the best strategy." The success stories spread throughout galactic society, but they also created new problems. Some alien species became fascinated with human unpredictability and started trying to copy it. The results were often disastrous. Veltharians who tried to think illogically made random decisions that hurt their carefully planned societies. Nexari, who attempted individual thinking, broke away from their collective and became confused and depressed. Luminants, who experimented with wasteful energy use, damaged their carefully balanced systems. Dr. Unbi Lim, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on adaptive thinking, published a research paper that explained the problem. "Human chaos isn't random," she wrote. "It's structured chaos that comes from millions of years of evolution. You can't just copy the surface behavior. You need to understand the underlying principles." Those principles, she explained, included the ability to stay calm under pressure, think creatively when normal methods fail, work well with others who think differently, and most importantly, learn quickly from mistakes without becoming paralyzed by failure. Humans don't succeed because they're chaotic, Yunbi concluded. They succeed because they've learned to find order within chaos, and to create new kinds of order when the old ones don't work. The galaxy was beginning to understand that human adaptability wasn't just about being unpredictable. It was about being able to change and grow in response to new challenges while still maintaining cooperative relationships with others. 5 years had passed since the Devourer crisis, and the galaxy looked completely different. Earth was no longer a forgotten planet on the edge of civilized space. It had become the center of something new, the first truly cooperative galactic civilization. Admiral Chanwoo Kim stood in the command center of the new galactic defense headquarters built in Earth's orbit. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of alien species working together in ways that would have been impossible just a few years ago. "Daily report, Admiral," said his aide, Lieutenant Soyeon Park. The Joint Patrol Fleet encountered another Devourer remnant in Sector 12. The mixed crew handled it perfectly. Veltharian logic for tracking, Nexari coordination for the attack plan, luminant energy weapons for the strike, and human adaptation when the machines behaved. Unexpectedly, Chanwoo nodded, this was how things worked now. Instead of each species trying to solve problems alone, they combined their different abilities. The results were better than anything any single species could achieve. "Any problems with crew integration?" he asked. "Minor ones," Soyeon replied. "A few Veltharians got frustrated when the humans changed the battle plan in the middle of the fight. But they're learning to expect it. The Nexari Collective is getting better at accepting individual initiative from human crew members. The integration hadn't been easy. Teaching logical aliens to work with unpredictable humans was like teaching cats to cooperate with dolphins. They were all intelligent, but they thought in completely different ways. Dr. Yunbi Lim had become the head of the new Institute for Adaptive Sciences, where researchers from every species worked together to understand how different kinds of minds could complement each other. Her institute had become the most important research center in the galaxy. The breakthrough came when we stopped trying to make everyone think the same way, she explained to a group of new alien students. Instead, we learned to use our differences as tools. She showed them videos of mixed crews in action. Watch this rescue mission. The Veltharians calculate the exact position of survivors trapped under collapsed buildings. The Nexari coordinate the rescue teams to work without interfering with each other. The Luminants provide precise energy for cutting through obstacles, and the humans improvise when unexpected problems come up. One young Veltharian student, its crystal form flickering with curiosity, asked, "But how do you prevent chaos when everyone thinks differently?" "You don't prevent it," Yunbi answered. "You learn to use it. Chaos becomes creative energy when it's properly channeled." The changes weren't limited to military and scientific cooperation. Art, music, literature, and entertainment had all been transformed by mixing human and alien perspectives. Composer Jiho Park had created a new form of music that combined human emotional expression with luminant energy harmonics and Veltharian mathematical precision. His concerts were attended by beings from across the galaxy, all experiencing beauty they could never have imagined alone. Music used to be about perfection, Jiho explained to a journalist. Each species created art that reflected their way of thinking. But when you combine different ways of thinking, you get something entirely new, something that's more than the sum of its parts. The same thing was happening in technology, philosophy, and even cooking. Human chefs were learning to prepare foods that satisfied the energy needs of luminants while pleasing the aesthetic senses of Veltharians and the collective taste experiences of Nexari. But perhaps the most important changes were happening in how the various species saw themselves and each other. Ambassador Jae-hyun Yoon had established the new Department of Galactic Relations, which worked to prevent any species from feeling superior or inferior to others. The old way of thinking was about being the best, he explained. Everyone wanted to prove their species was most advanced, most intelligent, most evolved. The new way is about being different, he continued. Each species brings something unique to the galactic community. None of us is complete alone, but together we're stronger than we ever imagined possible. This philosophy was tested when explorers discovered a new alien species on the rim of the galaxy. The Weavers were unlike anything anyone had seen before. They existed partially in normal space and partially in other dimensions that no one understood. Their technology seemed to work by bending the rules of reality itself. In the old days, the Galactic Council would have approached the Weavers as either potential allies or potential threats. They would have tried to understand Weaver technology, well enough to copy it or defend against it. Captain Soo-hyun Kwon, leading the first contact mission, tried a different approach. Instead of studying the Weavers to understand them, she simply accepted that they were incomprehensible and worked to establish friendly relations anyway. "We don't need to understand each other completely," she told the Weaver representative, a being that looked like living mathematics. "We just need to respect each other and find ways to cooperate." The Weavers were puzzled by this approach. They had expected either worship or fear from the other species, as their reality-bending abilities were far beyond anything in normal space. But the humans and their allies simply treated them as neighbors who happened to have interesting talents. "This is unprecedented," the Weaver representative said, its mathematical form shifting colors in what might have been surprise. "Other species either try to steal our abilities or try to destroy us to protect themselves. You do neither." "Why would we?" Soo-hyun asked. "You're not threatening us, and we couldn't copy your abilities even if we wanted to. So, let's just be friends and see what good things happen when different kinds of beings work together." Within months, the Weavers had joined the galactic community. They couldn't explain how their technology worked, but they were happy to help, with projects that required bending reality in useful ways. In return, other species helped them with problems they couldn't solve using their dimensional abilities. The success with the Weavers established the new pattern for galactic relations. Instead of trying to understand everything, the various species learned to accept mystery and focus on cooperation. Instead of competing to be the most advanced, they celebrated being the most diverse. But Admiral Chan-Woo Kim knew that the real test was still coming. His intelligence officers had detected signs of something moving in the deep darkness between galaxies, something that made the Devourers look like a minor inconvenience. "Whatever it is, it's big," reported Intelligence Chief Min Seo-jung. "Our long-range sensors are picking up disturbances in space-time itself, and it's headed this way." Chan-Woo looked out at the mixed fleets of alien and human ships. 5 years ago, the galaxy's response would have been every species trying to develop their own defense systems. There would have been competition, secrecy, and probably war among the allies before the external threat even arrived. Now the response was immediate cooperation. Scientists from every species began sharing data. Military leaders started coordinating defense strategies. Even the mysterious Weavers offered to help in ways they couldn't explain but promised would be useful. "Whatever's coming," Chan-Woo said to his staff, "it's going to face something that's never existed before. A truly united galaxy that's stronger because of its differences, not despite them." Lieutenant Soyeon Park looked at the data streaming in from across galactic space. "Sir, the projections show that this threat is beyond anything we've ever faced. Even with all our cooperation, the odds of success are terrible." Chan-Woo finished for her. "I know, but that's exactly the kind of situation where humans do their best work. And now we're not working alone." The galaxy held its breath and prepared to face the unknown, united for the first time in its history. The threat from beyond the galaxy arrived exactly as the sensors had predicted, like a wound in space itself. The entity was so vast that individual planets looked like specks of dust next to it. It moved through space by tearing holes in reality, leaving trails of twisted emptiness where stars used to shine. Captain Soo-hyun Kwon stood on the bridge of the flagship Harmony, leading the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from every known species flew together in formations that would have been impossible to organize just a few years earlier. Humans worked alongside crystal Veltharians, collective Nexari, energy-based luminants, and the reality-bending Weavers. All. "Stations report ready," announced her communications officer. "Combined fleet of 12,000 ships from 47 different species." "Any word from the science teams?" Soo-hyun asked. Dr. Ji-ho An, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on impossible threats, shook his head. "We still don't know what it is or what it wants. Our best theory is that it's not from our reality at all, maybe from a universe where different physical laws apply." "So our weapons might not even work on it?" "That's the problem," Ji-ho admitted. "Everything we know about combat is based on the physics of our universe. If this thing operates by different rules, then all our preparations might be useless." The entity continued its approach, seemingly unaware of or unconcerned with the massive fleet waiting for it. As it drew closer, its effects on space became more obvious. Gravity behaved strangely around it. Light bent in impossible directions. Even time seemed to flow differently in its presence. "It's not just moving through space," reported a luminant science officer. "It's rewriting space as it goes. The fundamental constants of physics are changing in its wake." Admiral Chan-Woo Kim, coordinating the defense from Earth orbit, watched the readings with growing concern. If it reaches populated systems, the effects alone will kill billions even if it doesn't attack directly. The fleet opened fire when the entity came within weapons range. Energy beams, missile swarms, gravity weapons, and even exotic attacks from the Weavers all struck their target. For a moment, it seemed like the combined firepower of the galaxy might be enough. Then the entity absorbed every attack without any visible effect. The energy weapons made it slightly brighter. The missiles simply disappeared into its mass. Even the Weaver's reality-warping attacks were consumed like drops of water falling into an ocean. All weapons ineffective, reported Fleet Tactical Command. The entity continues approach. Estimated contact with outer colonies in 72 hours. On Earth, in the Emergency Command Center, the greatest minds in the galaxy worked desperately to find a solution. Veltharian computers calculated attack patterns that might work. Nexari collectives brainstormed new approaches. Luminant masters tried to understand the entity's energy signature. But it was engineer Hayok Nam, the same human who had helped defeat the Devourers years earlier, who asked the question that changed everything. What if we're thinking about this wrong? What do you mean? Asked Veltar, the crystal alien who had become one of his closest colleagues. We're treating this like a war, Hayok explained. But what if it's not an enemy at all? What if it's just lost? The room fell silent. Dr. Jiho, An looked up from his calculations. You think it's not trying to destroy us? Look at its behavior, Hayok continued. It's moving in a straight line toward the galactic center. It's not attacking colonies. It's going around them when possible. And it's not even trying to defend itself against our attacks. But the damage it's causing might be accidental. Hayok finished. Like when humans walk through a forest and accidentally step on insects. The humans aren't trying to hurt the insects. They just don't notice them. Dr. Sujin Lee, now the galaxy's expert on first contact procedures, quickly ran through the implications. If it's not hostile, then attacking it is pointless and possibly dangerous. But how do we communicate with something that exists partially, outside our reality? The answer came from an unexpected source. The newest member of the galactic community was a young weaver named Twist Between Spaces, who had learned to communicate with normal space beings despite their fundamentally different nature. I might be able to reach it, Twist said, their mathematical form shifting through colors that had no names. But I'll need help from all of you. The entity is too vast for any one mind to comprehend, even mine. The plan they developed was pure human chaos combined with alien precision. Twist would extend their consciousness toward the entity, while Veltharian computers calculated the exact approach angles. Nexari collectives provided mental stability and coordination. Luminant energy masters powered the attempt, and humans provided the unpredictable creativity needed to bridge communication gaps. As the combined effort began, something remarkable happened. The entity slowed its approach and seemed to notice the galaxy for the first time. Contact was established not through words or pictures, but through shared concepts and emotions. What they discovered changed their understanding of the universe forever. The entity was indeed lost, not in space, but in reality itself. It had fallen from a higher dimension where it naturally belonged, becoming trapped in the three-dimensional universe where the galaxy existed. Its massive size and reality-warping effects weren't weapons. They were signs of distress, like a whale beached on a shore where it couldn't breathe. It's been wandering between galaxies for millions of years, Twist Between Spaces reported, their form flickering with something that might have been sympathy. Looking for a way home but unable to find one. It doesn't even realize that its presence is harmful to smaller beings. The solution, when they found it, was elegant in its simplicity. The entity couldn't return to its home dimension alone. It needed help from beings who understood both its reality and the reality it was trapped in. The Weavers could provide the dimensional manipulation, but they needed power sources, mathematical precision, coordination, and creative problem-solving that could only come from working with other species. It took the combined effort of the entire galaxy to create a stable portal back to the entity's home dimension. Veltharian computers calculated the exact dimensional coordinates. Nexari collectives coordinated the efforts of millions of technicians. Luminants provided the enormous amounts of energy required. Humans improvised solutions when unexpected problems arose. and the weavers wove it all together into something that could actually work. When the portal opened, the entity's relief was so powerful that it could be felt across the galaxy. As it prepared to return home, it shared something with its rescuers. Knowledge of the greater universe beyond their reality, including the locations of other beings who might need help and warning of genuine threats that might someday arrive. "Thank you," it communicated. Not in words, but in a feeling of gratitude that brought tears to the eyes of beings who had never cried before. "You have shown me that intelligence and kindness exist even in the smallest forms of life." As the entity disappeared through the portal back to its home dimension, the galaxy was left to contemplate what they had accomplished. They had faced the greatest challenge in their history not through superior firepower, but through cooperation, understanding, and compassion. Dr. Jiho An published his report on the incident with a title that became famous throughout the galaxy: "The Backwater Advantage: Why Diversity and Cooperation Beat Perfection Every Time." In his conclusion, he wrote, "The entity could have destroyed our galaxy without even noticing we existed. But it was saved, and we were saved, because we had learned to value our differences instead of trying to eliminate them. A galaxy of identical, perfect beings would never have found the solution. It took every type of mind working together to accomplish something none of us could have done alone." Years later, when new species were discovered on the edges of galactic space, the approach had completely changed. Instead of evaluation and classification, first contact teams focused on understanding what unique perspectives and abilities each new civilization might bring to the galactic community. Captain Wonho Lee, now in charge of exploration missions, smiled as he watched a newly discovered species demonstrate their peculiar ability to grow crystals that sang in harmony. They were primitive by galactic standards, barely capable of spaceflight and still fighting small wars among themselves. "They remind me of humans 50 years ago," he told his mixed species crew. "Chaotic, violent, unpredictable, and absolutely fascinating." "Should we invite them to join the galactic community?" asked his Veltharian science officer. "Definitely," Wonho replied, "but not because we want to change them or fix their problems. We want to learn from them. Every species that seems weak or primitive or chaotic might be exactly what we need to solve the next impossible problem." The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in the universe, that strength comes not from being perfect, but from being willing to embrace imperfection and learn from those who are different from yourself. Earth was no longer just a backwater planet. It had become the teacher that showed the galaxy how to grow beyond what anyone thought was possible. And in a universe full of infinite diversity and endless challenges, that lesson was the most valuable discovery of all.